investigation isn't going to come to the truth. They'll just do more for the cover up.
Okay. One more question from the chat room. Then I want to ask you about the economy. And again, these are just coming from chat participants. This is from Texas Roadkill. He's asking, he says that, he's stating that you're a Mason. Are you a Mason?
A what?
A Mason.
Mason? No.
Yeah.
No, I'm not.
No, okay. Well, in that case, Texas Road, he was asking whether or not you toe the line for your brothers in the Masons, which I didn't think you were a Mason, but
I mean, I don't know why people do that. I mean, they spread false lies when they imply. I mean, I read this stuff on the internet. It's absolutely false. So they're committing, a serious crime as far as I'm concerned because they're lying. So I don't know why people do that. I have no idea why they do it. And I don't know how that could be relevant to what I'm doing in Congress. So,
personally, I agree, but I wanted to get the question out to you since you might have known something more than me.
Well, he should be, challenged by somebody else, not by me, but say, why do you spread these things if you have no proof of any of it? And why do they do it?
Okay, last question from chat. Can't the individual states repeal Obamacare?
Well, that's a good question. The word repeal isn't the right word. Should the states have the right to opt out? Can you just reject it? Can you nullify it? And I'm a strong believer in nullification, and we should practice it. And states are starting to, but states have been frustrated with the federal government for many, many years. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. So as soon as they try to opt out or refuse to participate, the government always has so much of our money. They say they don't want to put up with some regulations that tell us how fast we can drive our cars. Back in the 70s when they were doing that, they said, all right, no more money. Even though it was the state's money, they took it from us. They always could say no more money, no more money. And this is less of a threat right now. So I think the understanding of nullification is much better. So I'm becoming more optimistic that many states are just going to nullify the whole thing. I think this is what's happening in California over the marijuana laws. They're ignoring the whole thing.
But
they said we can't even enforce these laws. We don't have the money, so the feds just get lost.
However, the feds are still going into marijuana clubs and arresting people, even though the states are doing this, which, of course, raises the specter of a Supreme Court adjudication. Whether it's Arizona's SB 1070 or Obamacare or the marijuana, is the Supreme Court going to come in and say, well, we're not going to rubber stamp what the states are doing?
Yeah, and they want we can't expect a whole lot from the courts, and you're right. I mean, Obama was supposed to be doing better on these issues, but for a large number of people, I mean, literally millions of people are defying the laws in this regard, and the state's not going to do the prosecuting, and the Fed, even though they're going to go in and make examples, there's no way that they're going to be able to enforce those laws. People are just saying, get lost. We're tired of all this. And what I think is going to happen, though, with the drugs and hopefully other things, is that people will finally get around and demand some changes in the law. There was a time when we had prohibition of alcohol, and the people said it's stupid. It's ridiculous. It causes crime. And they wised up and repealed prohibition. But the tragedy here is this is, again, done by regulations and unconstitutional laws. Back when they did prohibition, at least they had respect for the Constitution. They knew they had to, amend the Constitution. But today, I really think that people are waking up to this, and people are going to have to go on their own, because when the government fails, which they're in the process of doing, and they can't provide the medical care, and they can't provide, the armed police to come and arrest us for every violation, the people are just going to say, let's forget it. So they're going to ignore. I don't think they'll ever grant nullification in the legal sense, but in the practical sense, a lot of individuals and states are going to just say, look, you have our money, but it's coming back. It's not worth a thing, and we don't want all the regulations, so we're going on our own. And they're going to be forced to provide medical care or some system or legalize freedom of choice in medical care. That's the only thing that's going to work. The big thing is heavy hand of the IRS is the thing that the Fed's going to hold on to the longest. The heavy hand of the IRS and the monopoly power of the Federal Reserve to create money. Those are the two things that keeps big government going. But if the money goes and it's not functioning well, they've lost a lot of their power, then the next thing is they're going to have to, what they'll do is they'll keep coming in. That's the last force that they'll use. They'll not worry. They might quit worrying about marijuana laws a long time before they give up on the IRS checking on every single penny you spend and what you're doing.
Well, let's tackle money there. Financial experts are anticipating the Federal Reserve is going to print more money to exacerbate the current economic depression in which we are mired. That seems to be the Fed's trademark answer. Print more money. This is going to make the U.S. dollar more worthless and prices will rise. Are you doing anything to at least stall this next assault on our currency by the Fed?
Well, everything possible. I mean, calling attention to the Fed is the first thing, and I would say in the last 3 years, we've had a grand awakening as far as what the Fed does, and we had 320 people co-sponsor the bill to open up the books to find out if the people knew what the Fed was doing, especially on this bailout. I think they'd be so outraged they will demand to end it. So, auditing the Fed, I'm drafting a bill right now. We will once again, I've done this in the past, really make the point that we ought to be able to audit our gold, find out if the government still has their gold there. So those are the kind of things that I work on. But the magnificent thing is that now so many American people now do not have the faith and confidence in the Federal Reserve as solving all our problems. It used to be the Fed gave us our prosperity, and if there was a downturn because of capitalism, they would come to the rescue. But no longer, because of the work we've done with the Fed, people are starting to say, the Fed created the bubble, they create the situation where the bubble bursts, they create the unemployment and the depression as well as the inflation. So we've had tremendous progress in educating a lot of people with the Federal Reserve. When the people are educated, the government will change.
Well, let me expand on that, because I'm not sure where Congress's power is, and you can probably answer that for me. I know Congress has a lot of power to regulate a variety of things. For example, you can decide the jurisdiction of courts and things of that sort. Can Congress pass some kind of a bill that would, for example, say there will be no more currency printed by the Fed until such and such time? Is there any way Congress can stop this? They call it quantitative easing to make it sound more acceptable.
In the word you used, the Fed would have do no more spending, did you say?
Well, for example, let's say that you said, okay, the Fed cannot print any more money until, some particular...
Oh, yeah. Congress has absolute authority for this because although the Fed is very secret and a lot of private individuals benefit tremendously and the Congress has really no oversight, that's why the audit, even though we passed that in the House, it was turned down by the Senate. The Congress created the Federal Reserve. It's a law that the Congress passed. The Congress could get rid of the Fed next week. They could say, this is it. In 1 year, the Fed's gone.
But could they restrict the Fed's behavior? Could they say, for example, that this quantitative easing is not going to do any good?
Right.
If there are other congressmen who know what you know, could you get together and stop them?
You could, but they're not likely to, because this was one of the main arguments I really didn't win in the Congress, although I won the argument by the majority of the members of Congress to audit the bill, audit the Federal Reserve. It was very explicit that many of those who would sign on said, well, what we can't do is tinker with monetary policy. They didn't want to do that. So we don't have the support for that. If we did, we could. We could say they can no longer monetize debt. Or you could say suspend monetizing debt for the next year or whatever. You could do that under the law. But too many of them still believe that the Fed is the lender of last resort. If you didn't have the Fed, you'd have bankruptcies. Everybody would be bankrupt. No money would be left in the banks. The banks would go bankrupt and all the corporations. And they see the Fed as a savior. There's too much of that attitude that still exists there. But the answer to your question is legally they could. But what I'm arguing is the sentiment isn't there. The sentiment has only progressed to the point that the Fed is responsible for a lot of our problems, and the and the Congress should know a lot more about the Fed, and we should have oversight, and that we should have an audit of the Fed.
And however, you also give an avenue that we, the people, can work. In other words, since Congress can do that, maybe we can put some pressure on Congress to make that more palatable to at least some members. We'll give it a shot.
That's right. That's how the audit came about. It wasn't me going around. I don't have any clout in Washington, with other members.
We think you're king. We think you can do it all.
Well, no, I think the people are king. The government is a reflection of the people. I went to the people with Campaign for Liberty and reached millions of people, and they went to their congressmen. Everything is done by, the grassroots. The government that we have is a reflection of the people. So actually, what you do in trying to influence opinion, and that's what I continue to do, is try to change people's attitude and understanding of economics. And then when they demand it, then the politicians will change, because politicians aren't, they're not really philosophic. They're just looking for a job.
Yeah, with the
and they want this job, but if the people say, look, let's audit the Fed, just get rid of the Fed, just have found money, all those things will come when the people want it.
Fantastic. Our guest has been the Patriot Congressman, Dr. Ron Paul. I want you to imagine, folks, what our country would be like with Ron Paul as president. Ron, thanks so much, and we'll talk to you about that possibility the next time we speak. Thanks so much for all the work you're doing on behalf of the American people.
Thank you. Nice to be with you.